Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Mick Alphanim. So we're going to dig in deep today when it comes to liquidity crisis, what's going on with the banks, different problems that are arising. Are we going into a recession? I personally believe we're going into a depression. That's my personal opinion. OK, you could disagree with that, but I'll show you why I think we're going into a depression. Not just a depression in the United States. I'm talking about a global depression. Right now, whether people like it or not, we're sort of in a globalist system already. There's so many different ways that the different industries, economies, countries, central banks, governments are interwoven. Do you see how one takes an action? Let's say like the United States Fed takes an action, then all the other central banks follow suit. That's a globalist system, which means that all of these systems are set up like dominoes lined up one behind the other, or a house of cards. If something major happens in one, it's going to affect a lot of them. I won't say all, but it's going to affect a lot of them. But we're going to get into that today. This one may be a hefty video. We'll see how it works out. Okay. This first article is from Investopedia, just so we can set the stage. And it's titled Liquidity Crisis, because I know there's a lot of new people here. They may not fully understand what a liquidity crisis is. So let's lay the foundation right now. And it goes as such. It says a liquidity crisis is a financial situation characterized by a lack of cash or easily convertible to cash assets on hand across many businesses or financial institutions simultaneously. In a liquidity crisis, liquidity problems at individual institutions lead to an acute increase in demand and decrease in supply of liquidity. And the resulting lack of available liquidity can lead to widespread defaults and even bankruptcies. Key takeaways. A liquidity crisis is a simultaneous increase in demand and decrease in supply of liquidity across many financial institutions or other businesses. Second bullet point, at the root of liquidity crisis are widespread maturity mismatching among banks. There's chapters in here. If you want to jump around, this is going to be a potent one. The banks are literally causing some trouble, and I'm going to show you. Mismatching among banks and other businesses and resulting lack of cash and other liquid assets. There's so many assets that are illiquid right now. Don't let them fool you. But they told you themselves. The Fed told you. A lot of other central banks told you. Are you listening? Are the people? I know the other people aren't listening, but I know you are. Or other liquid assets when they are needed. Third bullet point. Liquidity crisis can be triggered by large negative economic shocks or by normal cyclical changes in the economy. Let's move to this next article. We have a lot to get through today. Now, this is an article from the South China Morning Post. Okay, it's good to get information from a variety of sources, and then you can decide for yourself what the truth is. You understand? It's like getting multiple opinions from different doctors. Then you're able to make a better decision about what type of surgery you need. Well, think about it like that. This article is titled Silent Killer, Liquidity Crisis Will Stalk Global Financial System in 2023. Let's read this. Let's start here. There is another potential threat waiting in the wings to seize center stage. And that is the risk of a liquidity crisis in the global, keep that in mind, global financial system. As with high blood pressure, such a threat is hard to detect until it is too late and can likewise be seen as a silent killer. Not to us, we've been ringing the alarm for quite some time. We've been watching this for quite some time and preparation. Preparation is almost everything. One hidden threat is the vast amount. Now, take note of this. One hidden threat is the vast amount of off-balance sheet foreign exchange swap positions held by banks. The banks are causing the problem. Which, and we went over this document if you remember, which the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, said in December had reached more than 80 trillion US dollars. What? This is a scary liability for 2023 as foreign exchange rates swing ominously, but we already know that. You're into the FX trades and stuff, aren't you? Yeah, we know that already. A potential stock market crisis is evident from plunging share prices, a bond market crisis from yield volatility, or a currency crisis from sharp swings in exchange rates. A liquidity crisis offers few such symptoms until it begins to affect the internal organs of the financial system. Now, this article was from December 31st, 2022, so it's very recent. Let's continue on here. What does such a crisis look like? The CFA Institute describes, quote, breakdown of an entire system rather than of individual parts, an entire system. This is why when they're talking about the new financial system, XRP, XLM, Algorand, and such, and they're moving at light speed to institute it, it's very important to watch how they're setting it all up. They're trying to save money. They're worried about security, which is another issue. They're worried about liquidity, on-demand liquidity. So you have all these banks signing up. Why? Because they knew something was coming. They knew the time for this old way that the system was functioning was up. And they know that there's almost nothing they can do about it except let it come to pass and try to survive it. The way that they can survive is through the new financial system. And utilizing that liquidity cushion, that's going to be key. Which Ripple also knew. That's why on-demand liquidity is patented. And by the way, I think they're going to have a lot more offerings once the case is over. I really do. There's so much more they can do with on-demand liquidity. So much more. But we shall see. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see. It says, in a financial context, it denotes the risk of a cascading failure in the financial sector caused by linkages within the system, resulting in a severe economic downturn. Financial history is littered with such crises, such as the Great Stock Market Crash and the Economic Depression after 1929, the Asian Financial Crisis, 1997, the Global Financial Crisis, 2008, where they were bailed out. And that's another thing. Watch out for bail-ins. They'll take your money. You think these exchanges were bad? People's entire paychecks and savings are all locked up in those banks. A lot of people. And the banks have been telling you about bail-ins. Don't worry, we're going to cover that. We're going to have a chapter about that. It says, yet it is remarkable how few people seem to be aware of this danger. I was just saying the same thing. Unbelievable. And they don't believe you. Believe me, I'm out there. I've talked to different people, right? These are powerful people. I'm letting them know what's going on. They don't care. They love the bank. Oh, no, Mick, the banks are okay. The banks can't go down. What? Right. Go get your 200K right now. Get your 100K. Go get your 100K from the bank right now. See if they just hand it to you. How much more so will that weight, will that lack to be able to provide that capital be exacerbated if there's bank runs in a financial crisis? They already told you we're going into a recession. It took them a long time to admit that. I believe we're going into a depression. We'll get to that. Don't worry. Chapters are in the video. You could jump around if you want to. This is a potent one right here. I can already feel it. Yet, okay, saying it was remarkable. For example, witness the relatively sudden change in monetary policy. We were covering that. I told you, watch the monetary policy. They fumbled the ball in such a way that now there's no way around paying the price for what has been done. Says it has gone from a decade and a half of historically low interest rates and low inflation, which encouraged high borrowing and risk taking. It definitely did. To rapid monetary tightening, surging interest rates, and an economic slowdown, global economic slowdown. It's not just about the United States, which is very suspicious in my humble opinion, unless they're doing adjustments, because the United States, didn't they say that in the third quarter, that GDP was at 3.2%, but then I saw an adjusted rate from the Atlanta Fed that said 2.9%. Maybe they made some adjustments there. But I'm telling you now, I find a lot of these numbers to be very suspicious. The same way when they do the inflation rate, they negate energy and food. But then, so then the people say, well, inflation has plateaued. Yeah, sure, if you negate all that other stuff, but plateau, if you look at the historical chart, and I showed you in one video, I showed you the historical chart. So hopefully you screenshot that and downloaded it. But every time it plateaus, it goes up. But even without that, we still see skyrocketing food costs. Whether you want to say it's by corporate or not, the government's not helping you in that. The food prices are going up. You saw the people posting all that stuff about the eggs and how eggs had tripled in price and things like that. Eggs are now a luxury. That's what the people are saying. So even the regular people are getting a whiff of this. So I always question those numbers. Go by your own experience. Trust yourself. Trust your own eyes, your own experience over almost everything else. So I'm telling you now, some of these people will tell you lies out here. Some of these agencies and such like that manipulate numbers because of politics. It's not about helping the people to survive. It's about politics. So be careful. Just my humble opinion. Not financial advice, not life advice. Just my humble opinion. Let's continue on to this next article here. This is from the World Bank. They released this on January the 10th, 2023. And the article is titled, "Sharp Slowdown in Growth could be widespread. Widespread. Increasing risk to global economy." Wait a minute. A sharp slowdown that is widespread, which means globally. Let's go here. Just bear with me one moment. I want to just go to something here. This is from Investopedia.com. Depression in the economy. An economic depression is a steep and sustained drop in economic activity. What have the banks been trying to cause? In conjunction with shortages in supply and all of these different other problematic things going on, right? Because typically when they try to raise interest rates and slow down the economy, we don't have a shortage in supplies and things of that nature, right? And a lot of other problems going on, like I said before. But there has been globally a steep decline, globally. Not to mention, United States isn't exactly doing stellar right now, no pun intended. An economic depression is a steep and sustained drop in economic activity featuring high unemployment. There's been mass layoffs. We're going to have a chapter in this video about that. There's been mass layoffs for the longest time. Are the people not seeing what's going on? Now, don't get me wrong. All of this that's going on would force them to institute the new financial system a little bit faster. So yeah, those prices could go up, but at the same time, you got to protect yourself. The phoenix rises, but at the same time, there's a hell of a fire that phoenix is rising from, and you better be able to survive it. You understand what I'm saying? You got to survive the fire to benefit from the phoenix that is rising. So an economic depression is a steep and sustained drop in economic activity featuring high unemployment and negative GDP growth. They had two consecutive quarters with terrible GDP, terrible. Then they came out in the third quarter, but they said 3.2. Now they're saying 2.9. But then was it the fourth quarter? Fourth quarter was down a little bit from there, but they didn't complain about it because they said, well, it's close enough to the third quarter allegedly. Like I said, I questioned those numbers. So what was the fourth quarter, like 2.8%, something like that? It's still not amazing. Then, like I said, globally, there's a steep economic downturn. There's a lot to come. But let's go back here. I just wanted to put that out there about the depression, what a depression is. So now let's scroll down here on this article. Read this little tidbit here. Global growth is slowing sharply. Protect yourself at all times. This is another reason why certain assets are going to explode, because people are going to run for the hills. Like, don't get me wrong. A lot of us are early into gold. But when you can't trust cash and cash is trash and you can't trust the banks, people are going to flee to gold. I'm telling you, especially the big money. They're going to flee to gold, and that's going to cause gold's price, theoretically speaking, if this does happen, that will cause gold's price to skyrocket. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, a lot of people are going to flee to Bitcoin. Hey, they could take that risk if they want, and maybe that might work. True. I've yet to see that. But it could definitely happen. But traditionally speaking, gold is the safest, and it's proven. Through every type of economic problem, gold has been a refuge that saves the people. It's to protect your value. And not only that, it increases in value. So that's one of the main reasons. But I'm just saying, Global growth is slowing sharply. And this is not financial advice. It doesn't matter to me whether you buy gold, don't buy gold, buy XRP, XRP. I don't care at all about that. I'm not here for retail's money at all. Not even close. I'm here for that bank money. That's why I stay on the banks. I stay on the banks. So you have to make your own decisions. It's not that type of channel, okay? You got to make your own decisions. You buy, you sell. That's up to you. You got to make your own decisions. Sorry, I'm a little fired up because these topics get me very, very fired up. Global growth is slowing sharply, with worldwide economic output projected to be just 1.7% in 2023. 1.7%? And people are not concerned about that. That number there, that estimate, this is from the World Bank. That's concerning. It says, according to the latest analysis from the World Bank Group, World Bank economists are warning that the downturn would be widespread and any adverse developments risk pushing the global economy into recession. What? Recession? We're already in a recession? World Bank, what are you talking about? This would be a depression. You think not? We'll get there. Slowing growth affects 95% of advanced economies and nearly 70% of emerging markets and developing economies, with the potential for increasing poverty rates in some regions. To help, okay, so then they go into a little bit more here, but let's move on because we have a lot of articles to get through, okay? So now we have global economic downturn happening, right? That's one symptom of a depression, not a recession, a depression. Second symptom, what they say? Let's go back here. What did they say? I don't know. Feature activity featuring high unemployment. There's some people might say, the jobs and the numbers looked good. You know, last time they put out the numbers, it looked okay. I told you, be careful of that. There's been mass layoffs. That's a lot of people without jobs, not just last year, but even 2023 just started. Already is mass layoffs. Think not? Let's go into this article right here. This is an article from Mondo.com. Mondo is an Addison Group company, so this is reputable, all right? And it's titled, Mass Layoffs in 2022, What's Next for Employees? But we're not going to cover that aspect, not just yet. We're going to cover 2023 because that's where they start. It says, what companies have had mass layoffs this year? Amazon CEO Andy Jassy announced on January the 4th, 2023 via internal memo that they plan to cut 18,000 jobs. Oh, no, you thought it was stopping there. You thought it was going to stop there? No, it doesn't stop there. No, it doesn't. No, it don't. It don't stop there. Salesforce mass layoffs. Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff announced on January the 4th, 2023, that the B2B software company plans to cut 7,000 jobs. 2023 just began. Can you see where everything is going? Don't act like you don't know. You don't know. You know. Approximately 10% of its workforce over the coming weeks. Vimeo mass layoffs. We can keep going. Popular video hosting platform Vimeo plans to lay off 11% of their employees in January 2023. This round of layoffs is on top of 6% laid off in July 2022. Mass layoffs been going on. You're telling me this is not a depression, huh? Right. And we didn't even get to the big stuff yet that could really just tip the iceberg over, tip the ship over, capsize everything. But one step at a time, one step at a time. And I hope that things get better. I don't want things to get worse. New financial system is coming no matter what. I want the people to do better, but the people must prepare themselves. Don't get caught unaware. These things go off and the people are sitting on all this cash inside the banks and such like that. I'm not saying don't use the banks. I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is keep your ears and your eyes open for the catalyst so you can be ahead of the rush, ahead of the herd. Because when things get to the mainstream, people will run to those banks and pull their money out. Now, the banks who are already illiquid will shut everything down. You won't be able to get your money. So keeping your eyes and ears open for catalysts will make sure that you're there first. You can get in there first and protect your value. If indeed you do use banks still. You can get in there first and extract your value and protect your value. This is about protection. You must protect yourself at all times. Hey, you can do whatever you want. Just sharing my humble opinion. I try to do my best by everybody out there. You've been with me for a long time here. So a lot of you like family at this point. My YouTube family. So I'm trying to do my best to get you good information and you can make your own decisions from there. All right. So that's Vimeo mass layoffs. Companies with layoffs in 2023, which is hilarious. It just began. Amazon layoffs, 1 to 2% workforce laid off. Salesforce layoffs. They did this in bullet points. 10% workforce laid off January 2023. Vimeo, 11% January 2023. Goldman Sachs. Oh, they're doing so good. Goldman Sachs lays off 8% of its workforce January 2023. Oh, you're doing such a good job, Goldman. Compass layoffs. Size of layoffs not immediately known, but they laid off some people in January 2023. Why don't we know the numbers on Compass? There's not an internal memo. They don't have to make that. Well, we'll see. We'll keep our eyes open. Put those numbers out there, Compass. Everybody, they're all doing mass layoffs. Put the numbers out there. That causes me to really, really question you. How much was it? Yeah, it makes me concerned. Stitch Fix layoffs. 20% of workforce in January 2023, and it just keeps going. Then they have another section, just in case you thought, well, this is just happening now, Mick. No, but I reported on mass layoffs for like 4 months last year. We started covering mass layoffs. It was maybe about July, then we did some in August, then September, then October. And then we just, every once in a while, we just talked about it briefly. But just to reiterate that this was going on in 2022 and the mainstream media and all the politicians were keeping it quiet. What companies had mass layoffs last year? DoorDash mass layoffs, 1,250 employees representing 6% of its staff. Facebook, Meta, 13% of its workforce, 11,000 employees. Do you see where I'm going? Listen, this is not a recession. This is like a light version of a depression. Protect your value. Twitter mass layoffs. November 4th, 2022, Twitter laid off 3,700 employees. Twitter's mass layoff of nearly 50% of its workforce is the largest mass layoff of 2022. Zillow mass layoffs. Zillow laid off 300 employees end of October 2022 at roughly 5% its overall employees. Peloton mass layoffs, resulting in 20% of its workforce being laid off, laying off 500 employees. We can keep going. Mass layoffs and economic decline. That is a depression. It's a light version of a depression, right? Because they're still going to play that numbers game, even though, like I said before, when you're looking at the jobs numbers, warehouses and other institutions can always put up new job postings at any time. They could have done that 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. That doesn't really indicate that they're actually going to be hiring. It's a lot of times they do that just to make themselves look healthy. Like, look, we're healthy, we're hiring. Then a lot of those job postings are old. People, the jobs, they post those postings and they just never take them down. We read that in the article, didn't we? And they just never take them down. Well, when the people are calculating what kind of jobs are out there, they don't take that into account. They just count those numbers in and say, oh, look, it's a lot of jobs out there, so everything's doing good. No. Snapchat mass layoffs, 20% of its employees, 1,300 people. SoundCloud layoffs. I just want to drive the point home. SoundCloud layoffs, 20%, reducing its global headcount by around 20%. Netflix mass layoffs. Remember that? 150 workers accounting for 2% of its workforce. Carvana mass layoffs, 2,500 employees, November 2022. Coinbase mass layoffs, laying off 18% of its workforce, June 2022. So we can go on and on and on. Mass layoffs have been going on. They're keeping it quiet. Protect yourself at all times. Now, let's go on here. This is an article from RussiaBriefing.com. It's titled, U.S. debt We talked about debt recently. Like I said, all of this works out very well for bank coin holders, theoretically speaking. And if the systems are instituted in time, that's key also, in time, they will use it to save everything, all these financial systems. US debt, the world debt is unbelievable. US debt is terrible also. And it's almost time to pay up, especially as everyone is de-dollarizing. US debt increases while Russia decreases and dumps dollar on weak global liquidity concerns. Everything is about liquidity. Everything is about liquidity. The global economy could be less than 18 months away from a financial crisis on the same scale as a 2008-2009 worldwide economic meltdown, Russia's central bank has warned. It says here, the central bank has now gone further and warned that the world economy is not prepared for a situation in which inflation does not come down as expected. That will force major central banks to rapidly adjust their ultra-loose monetary policies and temper the estimated $25 trillion, much more than that now, $25 trillion that has been pumped into the economy through unprecedented asset purchasing programs. Critics of such quantitative easing, including Russian policymakers, say the program has created dangerous asset bubbles across the economy. I agree with that. Rapid deterioration. Financial markets expect only a moderate normalization of monetary policy in developed countries, and each next step in raising rates will cause more and more concern for investors. And we've been seeing that. As countries move away from accommodative policies, conditions in the global financial system will deteriorate drastically and rapidly. I agree with that. As a result, 2023 may begin with mass sales of risky assets and aggravation of debt problems. Well, there's aggravation of debt problems, but I don't know about mass sales of risky assets, but we just begun 2023. Bank analysts are concerned about the explosion of unsustainable debt during the redacted, which has pushed both the government and corporate borrowing to record highs. Growth in the global economy would shrink to 1.1% in such a situation, it predicts. Economists generally consider global annual GDP growth of less than 3% to be a worldwide recession. Depression. The Russian economy. Okay, I don't want to read that part there. Let's go to another article. All right. I'm just trying to show you that almost all of the financial institutions are on the same page as far as they're preparing for something major to happen. There's a liquidity crisis already rearing its ugly head. They're not talking about it to the clients, customers, and the regular people. They're keeping them distracted. You know, this is an article here from tbsnews.net, and it's titled, Banks Under Liquidity Stress 2023 Will Be More Challenging Year. It says here, import restrictions amid foreign currency crisis have hampered production in the private sector, with businesses on the brink of defaulting on bank loans, said Syed Mahboobar Rahman, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Mutual Trust Bank Limited. So this is reputable, okay? He said banks are already under liquidity stress. And the coming recession will intensify the crisis. This is the bank telling you. And the coming recession will intensify the crisis while businesses bear the brunt of a gas shortage. Highlighting 2023 as a crucial year, the seasoned banker with a career spanning 33 years, so he knows what he's talking about, spoke to the Business Standard on the banking sector challenges amid the global risk to mark the 23rd anniversary of MTBL. That I don't care about. Let's scroll down here. What is the current situation of the banking sector? At the moment, banks are feeling the liquidity stress. The central bank has pumped $4.5 billion into the market so far this fiscal year to provide foreign currency liquidity support. As a result, about TK 45,000 crore has been transferred to the central bank from the banking system. Again, credit growth has been high due to low interest rates. The result is the pressure on market liquidity. We are trying to deal with it so that no customer can say they did not get their money on demand. Why does he say that? He said that because, like I said, because of their lack of liquidity, if there's any type of crisis at all, if a big bank goes down or a crucial bank goes down, or if there's some type of disaster that happens, people would be running to get their money out, and these banks would not be able to do it. They have to find a solution for liquidity. You have solutions like XRP, XLM, Algorand. I'm telling you, they can do a lot more than what they're showing. We'll keep our eye on that. That would cause, if they had to provide such a liquidity solution, that would cause those prices to go up, theoretically speaking. All right. The interest margin in the sector is gradually falling due to interest rate cap. However, it says 50% of our total deposits is fixed deposits. As scroll down here. Our non-earning assets NPLs are increasing. This reduces the effective lending rate. A bank's main income comes from interest, which is called core banking profit. However, we are increasing the balance sheet amount, but our interest income, which is the bank's main revenue stream, is declining. Sorry about that. I hope that wasn't like a little outburst. Let's go into the next article here. This is from Zawiya.com. Let me just get my place here because I want to scroll up. This is from January the 2nd, 2023, and it is titled, "Is the World Prepared for a Financial Crash and Contagion in 2023? They're all saying the same thing. Why? What's causing all of these financial bigwigs and giants, from banks to article writers to pros to analysts to security specialists? What's causing them all to say the same thing? It says the fact that the world did not experience a systemic financial crisis in 2022 is a minor miracle. Given the surge in inflation and interest rate, not to mention a massive increase in geopolitical risk, but with public and private debt having risen to record levels during the now bygone era of ultra low interest rates and recession risk high, the global financial system faces a huge stress test. A crisis in an advanced economy, for example, Japan or Italy, would be difficult to contain. True, tighter regulation has reduced risks to the core banking sectors, but that has only led to risk shifting elsewhere in the financial system. Rising interest rates, for example, have put huge pressure on private equity firms that borrowed heavily to buy up property. Now with housing and commercial real estate, we were talking about this last year a lot, on the cusp of a sharp and sustained drop, some of those firms will most likely go bust. Keep your eyes on things. Stay ready to adjust. In that case, the core banks that provided much of the funding for private equity real estate purchases could be on the hook. That has not happened yet, partly because lightly regulated firms are under less pressure to mark their books to the market. But suppose interest rates remain stubbornly high even during a recession, a distinct possibility as we exit the ultra low rate era. In that case, widespread payment delinquencies could make it hard to maintain appearances. So once again, they just confirmed what I was saying. They're not telling this to the people. So it allows them to maintain the guys that things are not so bad. Even though we know that the real estate market has definitely had its problems as of late, it could be much worse. That's what they're trying to say. The United Kingdom's recent financial misfortunes demonstrate the kind of unknowns that could pop up as global interest rates increase. Although former Prime Minister Liz Truss took all the blame for the near meltdown of her country, which is insane, country's bond markets and pension system, pensions. Watch the pensions. Pension system, the main culprit turned out to be pension fund managers. Watch the pensions. Pension fund managers who essentially bet that long-term interest rates would not rise too fast. Japan, where the central bank has kept interest rates at zero or negative for decades, might be the world's most acutely vulnerable country. But we saw what they did. They pumped a lot of money into their economy, didn't they? Oh, yeah. We covered that. But let's continue on. In addition to ultra low rates, The Bank of Japan has also engaged in yield curve control, capping 5-year and 10-year bonds at around zero. Given the increase in real interest rates around the world, the yen's sharp depreciation and high inflationary pressures, Japan may finally exit its near zero era. Higher interest rates would immediately put pressure on the Japanese government as the country's debt amounts to 260% of GDP. What? What? If one were to integrate the BOJ's balance sheet, roughly half of the government debt bought by the private sector is effectively in short maturity bonds. A 2% interest rate increase would be manageable in a high growth environment, but Japan's growth prospects will most likely decline as long-term interest rates continue to rise. My goodness, this is from Zawiya.com. This is a hefty article. My goodness, what a great researcher this individual is. I agree with everything they're saying so far. If you want to check it out, it's ZAWYA.com, Zawiya.com. Check it out. This is one of their front page news articles. They're doing a great job over there. Make sure you give them some traffic. Let's move on to the next article here, because I see we're getting long in the video now, but I have at least like 4 to 5 more articles, honestly. I may not get through all of them. This is from the IMF, but it's from October 22nd, 2022, but it has full relevance to what we're covering today. The article is titled, "Market Liquidity Strains Signal Heightened Global Financial Stability Risk." So we had a regular banker tell you this. We've had security. Did we cover the security company's article? Did we cover that yet? I don't know. But we've had one reputable source after another telling you this. That's my point. Market liquidity strains signal heightened global financial stability risk. A deterioration in market liquidity has amplified price swings. And this was in October 27, 2022. Right now, that only has exacerbated now. Let's continue on here. Liquidity is a key measure of how well financial markets are working, that we know. Let's scroll down here. Come on, IMF. Just give it to us straight. It says, this may pose risks to the financial stability, as our Global Financial Stability Report outlined earlier this month. This was recently underscored by the stress in the United Kingdom's government bond market, which required the Bank of England to intervene. This episode showed how sudden price moves combined with forced selling and deleveraging can lead to disorderly conditions in asset markets that could threaten broader market functioning and stability. Spillovers from disorderly asset markets could also increase borrowing costs for governments and corporations, worsening financial conditions. Even the governments aren't spared. And the regular people think they don't have anything to worry about. This is mind-blowing. Then they have a nice little chart here about market liquidity conditions that hopefully I'll put that in the video somewhere here. It says, after more than a decade of abundant liquidity and relative calm in market, central bank interest rate increases to contain inflation have been accompanied by elevated market volatility. That's what I was saying earlier. Let's move on to another article here. See if we can get a couple more in. So, this is happening around the world. The global financial system is under immense pressure right now. The liquidity is extremely low to non-existent. And we hold a liquidity coin. We hold liquidity tokens. We hold pieces of the new financial system. As this entire video, we're literally reading about the old financial system burning to the ground. Let's continue here. This is happening in Korea as well. Banking giants inject 95 trillion to ease liquidity strain. I always ask this question. I said this before. How long can they do that? So what they've been doing around the world, because this is not the only one. You saw Bank of England had to do the same thing. Then you have Korea doing the same thing. You had Japan do the same thing. They're propping up the banking system. They're propping it up. How much more will that be exacerbated, increased? How much more difficulty will be added once the BRICS nations back their currencies with gold and all the fiats fall to near zero? Then what happens? That's something else you got to watch. $95 trillion they injected. Says the government scrambled to roll out an emergency liquidity program. Emergency liquidity program. Because they didn't have it. They had to scrape all that together. They didn't prepare for it. In the future, offerings like XRP, XLM, Algorand, Hedera, these types of liquidity tokens, liquidity providers, I think that they will have infrastructure set up so that that money can move around quickly and that they have artificial intelligence, because you already see Algorand and a lot of other bank coins working with AI, right? So you see them trying to institute it in some sort of way, but the AI can detect before bank runs happen. The AI can detect before there's liquidity crisis. The AI can detect when certain things are over leveraged, and then it will take action to make sure that there's enough liquidity there so that there's not a problem. Instead of waiting on humans to do it, who are, of course, there's going to be a lot of human error, delays. There's going to be delays in decision making and questionable decisions made. No, the AI is going to just use algorithms and make accurate calculations to do such a thing. At least this would be the idea. So I do think 100%, I believe that the bank coins, the new financial system, will be utilized to remedy situations like this. It's my humble opinion. Let's move on to another article here. I'm trying to get through these here. I don't want to leave any out today. This one here is from CFOdive.com. And it's titled, Fed Flags Risks, Liquidity Strains. It says here, the $24 trillion U.S. Treasury market, although functioning smoothly, appears to be less resilient than is typical. The central bank said in a report on threats to financial stability, liquidity strains appear to be primarily a consequence of the elevated interest rate volatility associated with the uncertainty about the economic outlook. Next bullet point, today's environment of rapid synchronous. That's a problem. The fact that they did it all at the same time is what tells me that there's the possibility they want to crash the system. They did it all at the same time. The United States Fed does something, then the UK does something, then European Union does it at the same time, and Japan does it. Like, they all did it at the same time. Today's environment of rapid synchronous global monetary policy tightening, elevated inflation, and high uncertainty associated with redacted raises the risk that a shock could lead to the amplification of vulnerability. So they're causing it. They just told you synchronous global monetary policy tightening is a part of this problem and could lead to the amplification of vulnerabilities. For instance, due to strained liquidity in core financial markets or hidden leverage. Remember, a lot of that is off the books. This was stated by Fed Chair Lael Brainerd. So it's definitely reputable. He's letting you know that the Fed is concerned. Now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, let's get to the money.